go ahead and get started.
Okay, got the recorder on.
Okay, Jerry, you got your recorder on?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you for coming on this couple of nights before Thanksgiving. Tonight we're doing chapter six, procedures. Let me start with this. A couple of, let's see, Q&A without cues. And, okay, Jerry, am I sharing?
You are.
Okay. All right. The first thing I want to talk about is this. Now, um, at this point, we have all, worked through chapters one, two, three, four, and five. There was some really challenging material in there, especially if you didn't have a lot of science in high school. Um, if you had, chemistry and physics, you were probably okay. But if you didn't have physics, there was some challenging stuff in there. Now, these last two, three, four, five. These last five chapters, well, I'm sorry, the last four chapters, this is kind of a break for you because this is much, much easier material. There's no science, there's no, or very little science, there's no mathematics, and it's just stuff that's easy, but you gotta know it. Now, if you look on my table here that shows you the kind of questions that could appear on your exam or the type of questions that's going to appear on your exam. For the technician exam, there are a total of 35 questions. Now, of those, chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9, the ones we're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, if you look in the far right column, these questions come from chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. A total of 18 of the 35 questions could come from, or well, between 16 and 18 will come from these last four chapters. So, like, potentially 18 out of the 35 questions are going to be covered by the material we're going to review for the next couple of weeks. This is easy stuff, but you got to know it. And some of this stuff is really arbitrary that you can't really think your way through. You just have to know things. Um, for instance, one of the questions that could come up is what is the national calling frequency on the 2 meter band? And, and you just got to know that's 146.52 megahertz. There's no way you can reason that out, really. Well, there's a little trick there, but basically you just got to know it. So um, perk up, pay attention to these last 4 weeks, and this will really wildly increase your odds of passing the test. In fact, Mike and I, who will be handling these last four chapters, again, we tell you that our we're not here to teach you amateur radio per se. We're here to get you through the test. We'll get you to pass the test, and you know. We want you in that position when you sit down for that test you are happy to see a question from this material because we want you to be able to get in there, knock off these 18 questions at 100%. That'll only leave you 17 more questions to answer, of which you can get 9 wrong. So uh, you just so remarkably increase your chance of success. Okay, band plans. You know what? Before we talk about band plans, uh, okay, how do I do this? Uh, no, stop sharing. Okay. Before we talk about band plans, I want to take just a minute to review some of this. Okay. Now, again, a lot of participants. Okay. Jerry, you can see my cheat sheet here.
Sure can.
Okay. All right. A lot of what we're going to be talking about and referring to tonight are the VHF bands and the UHF bands, very high frequency, ultra high frequency. Mike went through this with you before, and VHF, that's going to be the um, uh, the the range between 30 megahertz and 300 megahertz, 30 megahertz and 300 megahertz. The UHF range is 300 megahertz to 3000 megahertz or 3 gigahertz. Okay. What else do I need you to know? A lot of what's we're going to be talking about is the 2 meter band tonight, and the 2 meter band is, basically 144 megahertz. Now, if we kind of, we don't expect you to memorize all of the frequency ranges for each of the amateur bands, but there are a couple you should know. And you should know that 144 megahertz is in the VHF range, and 440 megahertz is in the UHF range, okay? And again, earlier, and I think Jerry went over this with you, is that if you know the bandwidth, or I'm sorry, if you know the wavelength or the frequency, if you know one or the other, you can figure out the other one. So when you get to that question, there is a question that asks you, which of these frequencies is in the 2 meter range, and it gives you 4 different frequencies. Now, two of them are up in the 400 megahertz range. You can throw those out immediately. But then the other one, there's one that's very, very close. It's like 146 megahertz. And if you have forgotten, you can look at that 144 megahertz and drop it into this formula here, right? So frequency, the 146 megahertz divided into 300, that gets you about 2. Not exactly 2, but it gets you about 2. And so you know that that's going to be in the 2 meter band. Okay? Let's stop sharing that and let's get back to band plans. And oh, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Here we go. And okay, band plans. Now you read through the book and you know that for each of the bands, first off, let's talk about bands or the band plans. The band plans, the important thing to know about this is that these are voluntary agreements between ham radio people. They're not they're not mandated by the Federal Communications Commission. They're not regulations, they're not laws, but they're just plans that we use that we kind of all agree on. So to make communicating easier. If you're using Morse code, you're sending out usually often low power, often always you've got a very, very small little signal. And if someone is right next to you going full FM, they can easily blow you out of the water. So there are parts of the bands that are set aside for different um, different modes, different uses. Okay, now your your book, and I thought it was cool. The book did print this little table, and what you see is it gives you a real good breakdown of the band plan for the 2 meter band. And again, we talk a lot about the 2 meter band because, you know, once you get your technician license, this is the one you're most going to use. In fact, there's lots and lots of those handheld handy talkies that only give you access to the 2 meter band. A lot of them are dual band, and they give you the 2 meter band and the 440 band, or the 440 band is the 70 centimeter band. But you usually refer to it or hear it referred to as the 440 band. Any rate, what I want you to see here is that um, usually in the early part, in the first part of the band, and this is true for each of the bands, the first parts are normally set aside for weak signal communications, and this is things like um, principally Morse code, Morse code, and but also can be used for some data stuff also. You'll notice that uh, the very beginning, the 144 megahertz, um, five, the first 5 kilohertz is set aside or supposedly set aside for bouncing signals off the moon, right? The Earth, Moon, Earth communications, the Earth, Moon, Earth signals. But it's also basically um, Morse code or CW. There's also, and again, this is low in the band, there is a portion of the band set aside for single sideband. Now, most of the stuff you're going to be doing on the 2 meter band is full FM, not broadcast FM, but at least FM. Single sideband is a much smaller signal and you can get much better distance, but um, but full FM, if it's broadcasting next to you, can really crash your signal. So and just cover it. So the early part of the band is set aside for that also. Now in the VHF and UHF, the band plans are pretty complex, and they're pretty complex because there's a lot of repeaters. And you know, we talked about repeaters before, and there's lots of them. There's lots of them in the 2 meter band and in the 440 band. I've highlighted a couple things here for you. If you look at the orange highlights, our club, the Hazel Park Amateur Radio Club, has a repeater. We have one ourselves. And what I want you to see here is that the, oh, I haven't, oh, yes. Oh, no, I didn't highlight them. Okay. The, our repeater, you can hear it on this green band right here. It's 146.64 megahertz, and that's what you listen to on. But it's a repeater, so the thing about the repeater is that it's duplex, meaning you listen on one frequency, but you transmit on the other. And for the 2 meter band, normally not always, but normally the offset is 600 kilohertz. 600 kilohertz. For us, it's minus 600 kilohertz. So for the Hazel Park band, um, the output, you'll listen at 146.640, but you'll transmit at 146.040. 40. Okay. Now, the other thing I've highlighted in yellow, the National Simplex Calling Frequency. And I want you to look at that. It's 146.52 megahertz. The reason I have that arrowed is because that is one frequency that you may be asked for on your technician exam. Um, the other frequencies I was talking about was just for illustration purposes, just for example. You don't have to learn those, but the 146.52 is the National Simplex Calling Frequency. What that means is that's a frequency set aside for if you just want to hop on and talk to anybody and you don't have anyone in mind. It's a good place to start because that's where a lot of other people looking for a contact are going to start. Okay, 146.52 megahertz. Okay. Now, oh, and we've been through a lot of this, but yes, the band plans can, well, they are pretty complex for VHF and UHF because there are repeaters. But when you get down below VHF, 30 megahertz and below, the band plans get much simpler because there are, well, okay, the 10-meter band has a few repeaters, but most of the other bands have 0 repeaters. So they don't need to set aside areas for input and output. Okay. Other things that the band plans set aside space for are things like beacons. Now, beacons, those are automatic transmissions from transmitters that are set up that transmit constantly. Right? They are regular transmissions. And do you know what those are good for? Is that there's lots of those things out there. But if you can hear a beacon, what that means is that the propagation path to that direction, to that location, is open, and you can hear people from that location. And if you if you have a good antenna and enough power, you can transmit to that location and people will hear you in that area. So, for instance, if you wanted to, well, Jerry has relatives out in Denver, and if he wanted to know if he could get communications to Denver on 20 meters on the 20-meter band, all he would have to do is find a beacon somewhere in mid Colorado and see if he could hear them. And if he could hear them, then they can hear him probably, and he can transmit to them. All right. All right. I also talked a little bit about areas that are set aside for weak signal communications, and that weak signal means Morse code, CW, or single sideband. And there's some areas set aside for digital modes also. Now, satellites uplinks and downlinks, and I think this is just cool. When we were talking about propagation and how shortwave, or I suppose I should use the standard terminology for us, HF, the high frequency, not VHF, not UHF, but high frequency, regular HF signals bounce off the ionosphere and can get very far. But the 2-meter band, VHF and UHF, those signals don't bounce off the ionosphere, they go right through. And what that's great for is, no, you can't get very distant local communications, but you can communicate with satellites and you can hear satellites. Well, yeah, you can hear satellites, but you can also communicate with them. Satellites are usually will usually have a code, and it'll be either U/V or V/U. And a U/V means is the uplink, or when you talk to them, you transmit on a UHF frequency, like 440, 444. And the V means that that's their downlink. When that's the second character, that's their downlink, meaning you're going to talk to them on UHF, but they're going to talk to you on VHF. Now, vice versa, if their codes are V/U, it's the reverse. It means you're going to talk to them on VHF and they're going to talk to you on UHF. All right. Now, um, we talked about the repeater and how communications on a repeater, they're referred to as duplex because you're transmitting on one frequency and listening on another. When you're just, picking up your handheld and pushing the push to talk button and talking to someone nearby, uh, you're transmitting and receiving on the same frequency. That is called simplex. And that's a good thing to know. We call the other one duplex, we call this simplex. I don't know why they didn't stick to the same kind of nomenclature and refer to it as monoplex, but they didn't. So anyhow, so that's what simplex is. Simplex, there can be a question on your exam, or I should just say there is a question in the question pool that asks you what simplex is. And so remember that. Okay, oh, we talked about repeater inputs and outputs, controlling. Oh, and great. And here's the band plan. And it was probably in your, well, it was in your book, although this is a nice, pretty, um, full color, full Technicolor version of it. Okay. And, oh, and I guess we're gonna, I think there's another, oh, all right. What this tells you is it tells you what privileges you have and what modes you ought to be using. All right. And I think this next slide actually does it a little better. You see,
Bob, if I can jump in, this is not voluntary. These are the rules, and
oh yeah, oh yeah,
you can't really deviate. You can't operate phone at the 7.0 to 7.075, at least in the United States.
yeah, yeah. Um, that's true. These letters down here, extra, advanced, general, novice, technician. These are your privileges based on your license level. All right. And yes, and that's these are not voluntary. This is FCC stuff. So uh, be warned. All right. Then, but the color coding is what modes you can use on which parts of the band. Okay. And oh, yes. All right. All right. So that's it. Um, Making contacts. All right. You know what? We try and behave with manners, just because there's a lot of people using, think of this as like a party line. There are a lot of people, wanting to talk, and sometimes they're all toward the same frequency. So anyhow, um, eh, there's a couple of behaviors we consider mannerly. So you turn on your box, you turn on your transceiver, and you want to get chatting. But the first thing you ought to do is just listen and see if there's anyone already using the frequency you want to use. Um, Normally, uh, there's a couple of things you can do. And I don't know why I think they bring it up on a later slide. If you just want to talk to anyone, you don't have anyone particular in mind, what you do is you get on, you push the talk button, and you call CQ, CQ. And and what you'll say is, for instance, this is N8 REL calling CQ, N8 REL calling CQ, which just means I want to talk to anyone. Okay. Now, if there's someone already out there doing it, you can respond to them In fact, that's probably what you want to do. Um, Now, here they tell us the easiest way to attract listeners is to just say, uh, give your call sign, like, for instance, this is N8REL monitoring. Okay, that's what the book tells you, and that's fine. I,
Well, that's
I,
sort of HF versus VHF, UHF manners. On the HF, when you get to the lower bands, like technician privileges on 10 meters, you're going to go CQ, CQ. This is
yeah,
my call letters and all that sort of stuff. But when you get on a repeater, VHF, UHF, just let them know you're there, and if someone wants to talk to you, they'll get back to you.
yeah, yeah. And again, that's not hard and fast. If you want to get on the 2 meter band and call CQ, you can do it. Although this just giving your call sign and saying monitoring, that's very very common on 2 meters. Okay. And responding to a station, just give them their call sign. Like, for instance, if I was responding to Jerry, I would just say W9 NPI, this is N8REL.
Mhm.
And then Jerry could ignore me if he wants to.
Oh, Bob, it's the old friend. No, no, N8REL, W9NPI. How you doing?
Okay. Okay. Uh, yeah. And it will happen. Oh, it happened to me last weekend. It will happen that you get onto a frequency and you'll find that, uh-oh, someone else was actually using it. Uh, you know why this sometimes happens? Is because you can get on a frequency and you don't think anything's going on because you can't hear the guy talking, but when someone comes back, you can hear you can hear someone else responding. I had that happen on Saturday when I thought someone had cleared the frequency because one guy said he gave his call sign and said, clear. So I thought that meant the frequency was clear. No, he was the guy responding to another guy. The other guy I couldn't hear. Um, that's just the way propagation was working then. Okay, and that happens, the original guy came back to me and said, this frequency is not clear. And so I just gave him, sorry, NAREL out. And that's all you need to do. Just, it happens. All right,
Can I throw something in, Bob?
sure.
So, I know that several of the people that are in this class are in some form of emergency management, a CERT program or ARPSC or both. Um, I will point out to you that a lot of the municipalities, the police and fire dispatch, do the call sign thing backwards. So what you want to remember for amateur radio is, or an easy way to remember which one is first. Is it mine first or theirs first? You want to remember, hey, you, it's me. Okay. You want to call someone's call sign and then tell him you are. And part of the reason for that is because they, when you're listening, if you're in a big room, if I'm just saying, hey, I'm over here, hey, I'm over here, no one's going to pay attention to you. But if you're saying, hey, Jim, well, Jim's going to perk my ears up. So, hey, you, it's me. And remember that when you get into, if you're working with municipalities, that they're doing it backwards and you just got to deal with it.
Okay. Okay. Now, now we're talking about distorted signals. If your signal's strong but distorted, why would that happen? Especially when you're new, the most common reason is because you've bumped your tuning knob and you're a little off the frequency. But there are other reasons that can happen. Just speaking too loudly in the microphone, and if you're holding the microphone too closely and speaking right into it, that can do it also. Or maybe and this is more for VHF and UHF if you're transmitting from a bad location. Now, with VHF and UHF, remember the wavelengths are quite short. For the 2 meter band, of course, the wavelength is only about 6.5 feet. And for the 70 centimeter band, that's, what's that, about 28 inches or something. You know what, and that's, I don't remember right offhand, but it's not very big. So being just a few feet, moving just a few feet, can really affect uh, your signal. In fact, the funny thing is, when was it? A couple weeks ago, I think we were talking about um, help me, parallel and vertical, or horizontal and vertical polarization, horizontal and vertical polarization. Sometimes on our 2 meter net, we used to have this guy who would call in on his handy talkie, but sometimes his signal would be very, very good because he's not very far from the repeater. He lives down in Oak Park. But sometimes it would just be terrible. And, I reported to him, well, what's the deal? Your signal's awful. And it turned out that not that he was in a terribly bad location, but he was in his recliner chair, pretty much laying down. And so he was orienting his antenna, his handheld antenna, horizontally instead of vertically. Any rate, and so if he sat up, uh, his signal became much better. Okay. Oh, and the final reason for is weak or low batteries. That's going to mess up your signal too. All right, repeaters. Repeaters have something called a courtesy beep, which and which tells, normally on a repeater, they're set for a certain amount of time for a transmission. I think I know ours is set for a 3 minute transmission. So if you get on and start chattering and you go over 3 minutes, all of a sudden you're going to get cut off and you're going to be talking and chattering away and no one's going to be hearing you. Other people are going to hear a beep. You won't necessarily hear the beep, but other people will hear the beep, and meaning you've exceeded the time limit. Um, we we have one regular ham that calls into our Sunday night net who goes over the time limit so often that we just refer to him as Timeout Jim. So, all right. Simplex contacts. Now, the thing about simplex is, you know what? If you can call another station without going through the repeater, please do that. The repeater only handles so much traffic at one time, and there's no reason to use it if you can get other people, if you can talk to someone simply on simplex, send and receive on the same frequency. It avoids tying up the receiver or the repeater. And they're talking about this reverse split function. Many of your radios will have something called the reverse split function, which allows you at the push of a button, instead of listening to a repeater on its output frequency, it'll let you listen to the input frequency. So you'll actually listen on the frequency that the sender is transmitting on, rather than on the other frequency that the repeater is switching it to and broadcasting it. Very, very, very useful at times. Okay. Again, we've been over this before. The national simplex calling frequency on 2 meters is 146.52. Okay, I highlighted that on the other screen because that is a question in the question pool. For UHF, there is also a calling frequency, but you know what? That's not on, that isn't one of the questions. So it's 446 megahertz, but you're not going to be asked that on the test. So, yeah, but remember the 146.52. All right. Yes, and Mocha, we've already talked about band plans. All right. Now, making single sideband or digital. Oh, this is cool stuff. All right. The thing about making contacts is, yeah, you don't want to blabber too much, but you've got to talk long enough so that other people can dial into your signal. All right. This is especially going to be true when you get down in the 10-meter band, where um, people will be dialing through, several megahertz of available territory. If you're calling into nets, of course, if you're going to call into a specific net, you know what the frequency is, you know where the people are going to be. But if you're just getting on and going for a random contact or a new contact, you don't necessarily know who's out there. And it's going to take you a little time to figure out someone's call sign. Once they call, it's real easy to forget. So it's very, very useful to repeat your call sign several times, not only in regular words, but then also using the phonetic alphabet. So, I could, down on 10 meters, I could be calling, CQ, CQ, CQ. This is N8 REL, November 8, Romeo Echo Lima. November 8, Romeo Echo Lima, calling CQ and standing by. Okay? You want to give them a long enough communications that they can, first off, hit the correct frequency, right? Because they may have to dial around a little bit. It's going to take them a little bit to find, who's broadcasting. They'll be doing this by looking at their radio, because there are many of the radios have displays that show what, where transmissions are happening. And it takes a while to dial to that area, and then it takes a while to dial in to the specific frequency you need. Okay, on CW, on Morse code or in digital, it's kind of the same thing, except you're just going to go CQ, 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 DE, which
that's French.
That's from French, that's from French. All right, this is DE, and then your call sign 3 times, and then okay, that's just the way it's done. All right, again, before calling CQ, make sure the frequency, the first thing, make sure you're in an area of the band where you actually have privileges, okay? Especially as a technician, because you get into the 10-meter band and you have a specific area, and you can hear people talking outside your allocation area, people with general or extra licenses, but you need to stick to your area. Okay, listen, make sure the frequency is not in use, make a short transmission, and announce yourself. All right. When you're responding to a station, yes, just tell people first their call sign, then your call sign, just like Mike told you. You tell him, Mike. Okay, cue signals.
Okay, Bob, before you get into that, a couple of small things. Number one, on Armed Forces Day, there's some kind of arrangement that the FCC has blessed where you actually have radio stations that are using military frequencies just off outside the ham bands. but they will listen to you and will make a contact, and you're allowed to do that. One other thing is that, especially, well, it's happening more and more. Uh, Stations that expect a lot of responses try to arrange things so they don't get overrun. So they will use two frequencies. They will call on one frequency and they will say up 5 or up 2 or something like that, which means that you your transceiver has a setting. It's called split, where you can receive on one frequency and transmit on the other. So you'd get into that mode. You'd listen to the distant station on the one frequency, but then you'd go up anywhere from 1 to 5 kilohertz and respond. That way, nobody is swamping him, so blotting him out, and he'll be able to arrange his answers and do a lot of contacts that way. I don't think there's a question on that, but that's just the simple practice that we do.
Okay, thank you. Q signals. Q signals. These are radio shorthand. They, kind of like LOL, except contain more information. All right. They're really, yeah, you will sometimes hear it on voice, but it's really meant for Morse code. All right. Now, your book has this nice table of all these different Q signals. What I've highlighted here are two signals that are in yellow. One is QRM, which means your transmission is being interfered with by another operator and by man-made interference. All right. This you would not hear QRM if someone is reporting interference by thunderstorm or static in the atmosphere or something. No, this is QRM. It means they're being interfered with by some kind of human-made interference. That QRM can appear. There is in the question pool a question that asks you about QRM. All these others, they don't, except QSY. Now, Jerry talked about that earlier, and QSY simply means let's change to another frequency. All right, change transmission to another frequency. And they may say something like, QSY up 5 or up 10 or something like that. All right, so the QSY and the QRM, those are the only ones you need to know for your test. QSO and QSL, you're probably going to hear those referred to a lot more than the two in yellow, which is kind of funny. But and then QTH. QTH is just your location, and you're probably going to hear that more often than QRM and QSY. But you have to know the QRM and the QSY. Okay.
And here's a joke that we sometimes use when we're sending Morse code. It's called QLF, which means, okay, I can't understand you. Send with your left foot.
Okay. Now we're talking about transmissions, and there's some terminology you need. You should start learning. One is DX. When you hear someone asking for DX, it means they're usually looking for a distant station. Sometimes people will actually mean by that a foreign station, and or sometimes they will say, DX Caribbean or DX Islands or something like that. But if you hear someone from Ohio calling for DX, they don't want to talk to us, or someone from someone from Grand Rapids calling for DX. They certainly don't want to hear from us. All right, so that's what DX simply means distant station. Okay, contesting. Contesting is fun. There are some people that really, really get into contesting. I do get on the radio for the contest. All the contest means is it's a time set aside, a particular date and time set aside, and there are a couple of these every month. Um, but it's a time and a date set aside for people to get on and make as many contacts as they can. Now, sometimes you just want to get in and talk to people and chit chat and whatnot. A contest has very specific information requirements, uh, and you'll be expected to provide just the basic necessary information. It may be something as simple as this is uh, N8REL, Michigan, and that's it. Or N8REL, low power, Michigan. Usually 3 or 4 pieces of information. They'll need to know your call sign, your either your state or your county, depending on what kind of contest it is. And you'll be expected to just get on, give them the quick. Oh, and sometimes they'll ask for a serial number where you just you start numbering your contacts. You start numbering from one, and you tell the other person what contact they are. Um,
Bob,
again, you
Bob, can you give me permission to put something on the to share a chart?
Jerry, yeah, I put you up as co-host, so I'll stop sharing and you
Oh,
share.
okay. Um,
Mike, you are also co-host if you want to put anything up.
okay. This is a chart. It's a website, and it lists a lot of different contests during. Well, this is for the week, for an 8-day period. And here, worldwide single sideband activity contest for a short amount of time here. There's a real big one coming up next week, Saturday and Sunday. CQ Worldwide DX Contest, CW. Actually, people will go, they will rent radio stations, they'll rent cottages down in the Caribbean and places like that so they can operate the contest. And this is if you're proficient, they have phone contests, CW contests, teletype contests, but you can make a lot of contacts with this. And if you click on one of these contests, it will give you the rules. Sideband activity contest worldwide, what bands and what kinds of credits you get, 1 point, 5 points, 10 points, and so on, and where to send your logs. There's an awful lot of activity now. I guess ARRL calls it radio sport. And every once in a while, you'll get on the air and especially on CW, you'll hear the whole section of the band just bursting with people sending contests. It's called a sprint. And they take 1 hour, make as many contacts as they can. So it's something to do, and there are plenty of certificates that you can qualify for. I remember I think it was Slovakia or Slovenia had something like 12 or 13 churches with pictures of saints, and if you contacted these stations at the churches, you could qualify for some kind of certificate with all the saints. Go figure. But
Hey,
there's
Jerry, go down a little bit because one thing I want to show the just below max power it says exchange. Now, that's the information that they're expecting to receive. That's the information you have to provide for this particular contest. So,
Right.
other than your call sign, you know,
Okay.
um,
So signal readability and strength, and your age group: old man, young lady, youth, young lady, or youth.
yeah. So
Or
like
what do they say? My cousin Vinny, the Utes.
the Utes, yeah. So so for on this one, for instance, mine would be my response would be uh, N8 REL 59 old man. Okay, all
Okay,
right,
I'm giving it back to you now. If I
okay,
unshare, where can I unshare? Okay, stop share. Okay, there you go.
okay. And I'll go back to where am I? Okay, am I back on?
Yep.
Okay, all right. And yeah, just Jerry just showed you. I don't know if that was the ARRL contest calendar, but it was a good one. In
This
fact,
was
I
a
think it was more
yeah.
complete than
This
the
listing is a month.
ARRL one.
This one is the listing for the monthly one from ARRL. No, the one I showed you was a separate independent one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Field day. And
Yes,
I don't remember what question is. Yeah, Jerry.
everybody's invited.
Oh, everyone is invited. Yeah. Um, yes, on the last full weekend of June, uh, our club goes and sets up in a park, usually either Green Acres Park down in Hazel Park or Scout Park. Scout Park is also in Hazel Park, but it's off of 9 Mile near I-75. Oh, sorry. Where am I? There. No,
There you
there.
go.
I'm sorry. I was knocking myself off frequency. Um, Field Day is a big event. It's the biggest event, I think, for amateur radio in the U.S. Unless you count the Dayton Hamfest. But and it's not a contest really, but it's a place where you can go. We set up not just us, but other clubs in the area. We set up stations on several different bands. We put up uh, antennas, and you as an amateur, uh, you can come, even if you're a technician. And Mike will go over this next week, but if you sit there with with an extra class licensee, you can operate on the extra class bands. And so that's the big thing about field day. For field day, we actually also set aside one station that we call our get on the air station, where even people that are not licensed can come and sit down, and we'll show them how to use the radio. We'll show them, how to make a transmission, and they will be able to make transmissions even though they're not licensed because they're being overseen by someone who is licensed. Okay, fox hunting and direction finding. This is something else you can do with amateur radio. There's a lot of things you can do with amateur radio. Some of the things are going to turn you on, some of the things you're not going to be interested in at all. That's fine, but it's all there and it's available. This direction finding, and fox hunting is just like a contest using direction finding. In direction finding, what you're going to be using is something like a handheld radio with a handheld antenna. Someone goes out and plants a transmitter, and you don't know where it is, and using your directional antenna, your handheld directional antenna, um, the game is to find the transmitter, and that's what fox hunting is called.
Yeah, Bob,
Okay.
it's not quite as benign as you think. When I was a kid with Detroit Civil Defense, they had us do fox hunting, but they were training us to try to locate guys who might have a hidden transmitter in their closet that would guide the Soviet bombers into our fair city.
Ah, ah. The romantic days of the Cold War. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Jerry, I'm of that age too. I remember duck and cover. We
Oh,
we
yeah.
like like those cheap wooden desks at the Catholic school I went to was going to do anything against a nuclear weapon. So,
Oh, yeah. The air raid shelters.
well, anyhow. All right, video. I'll be real honest with you. I don't know anyone who does this. I don't. And this is one of those things that I really don't have any interest in, but yeah, it's available. You know, if you want to send pictures on amateur radio, you can do it. And there's a couple of ways to do it. Um, Normally, you're going to do this on the UHF bands or higher. And what you're going to be sending is, and all right, I want you to learn this NTSC, National Television System Committee. All right. That's the mode that you send, or that's the format that you uh, send your communication in. And I say that because I think that still pops up on the, yeah, it does still pop up on the exam. Never popped
Yes.
up on any exam for me, but it could. Because they'll ask you, you know, what is a fast scan color TV signal format? And that's what that is. All right.
Now, if you tune to 14.230 in the 20-meter bands, you will occasionally hear a strange signal, which is slow scan TV, which is, sending pictures and stuff. And there's readily available software that you can download that will take the tones and translate it into a picture. Usually it's, a cute kitty or something like that. But people use that because they can.
Okay. Oh, repeaters. Oh, they want us to talk about repeaters again. That's fine. Um, there's any number of ways to find repeaters. Really, probably the easiest way is to just uh, go on the net. You can start with Dr. Google and ask him, or you can go right out to arrl.org, or you can buy yourself a nice little book, a nice little repeater book. This one is from I think 2017. Um, and you see, it's packed. I mean, there's hundreds of pages of hundreds of repeaters.
Well, Bob, after the class, I will send all the members my what every young ham should know email, and
Okay,
I've got a link where you can get on the web, and it'll show you a map of where repeaters are, give the details and stuff, and there are plenty of them.
okay, all right. Yeah,
Quick
if you
question for you, and then if I may, since you guys are talking about it, does the ham community have something similar to the GMRS community where I go to mygmrs.com and I have all the different repeaters that I can get in the entire United States?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, yeah, you can start at www.arrl.org, or
Yeah,
I'm not as familiar
repeaterbook.com.
with this repeater book thing.
Yeah, repeaterbook.com is a big one. And if you just Google amateur radio repeaters, it'll pull up, a boatload of sites that you could go. And I personally like Repeater Book, um, because you can go right down to the county level and see what, or even the city level and see what repeaters are in a city. And so it's a very helpful tool.
Okay, hang on, my cat's yelling at me. I gotta let her out.
Right. The thing is, it's not going to guarantee that if you access that repeater, that someone's there to answer you.
Or that the repeater's up. If somebody's not keeping up their documentation and they've taken that repeater offline for any reason, it could be down forever or it could be down for an hour, but you may not be able to get to it and not know why. So if you if you are setting up a radio and you're trying to get to a repeater and you set up the transmit, you set up the receive, and you set up the tone, and then you try to connect to the repeater and it just won't ka-chunk, try a different repeater. If you're sure you've got everything set right, try a different repeater, because it might be that the repeater's down, and that would not make, you're never going to get it.
Okay.
And that's why I was curious, because like for my GMRS end, when you go to the mygmrs.com and you have to use your call sign to log in, they verify your call sign is currently active. That's what gets you in. Goes up into the entire map of the United States. Then you sit there, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in. I go right into Michigan, then I go right into like the Detroit 600 or 625 repeater. I click on that very specific repeater and it shows me a ring. I know within Westland in that repeater ring, I'm there, and it gives me the 625.00 with an input output, or my CTCSS tone straight
Yeah.
on. Or the flip side, if I go to like Cement City, it states that it's closed or for private use, and to contact the owner of the repeater, which it gives the contact information to very specifically, that then you can reach out and get that access to, officially get on their repeater. I was curious if Ham had anything similar, because I know with my GMRS, they maintain that thing like monthly.
Yeah,
Well,
Ham's
some,
open wide. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no permission. You go to repeaterbook.com and you look at the repeaters in Canton, and you go, okay, I want to connect to that repeater. I'm in Canton. That's right by me. That's a repeater that's 2 miles from me. I should be able to hit that repeater. All the information is there that you need. You don't need permission. You don't need anything.
Gotcha.
I still remember my next door neighbor who speaks fluent Spanish. He got a talk group, I think in Panama or thereabouts. He got in there and started asking for someone to talk to him, and they were very hostile to him. I don't know why. But that's usually not typical of Hams. We're usually pretty friendly.
Yeah, except he had a USA call sign, didn't he?
Yes.
Oh, well. All right, to access a repeater, you got to know some stuff. All right. You have to know the output frequency and the input frequency. All right. The transmitter's output is the one you hear. The input frequency is the frequency that you have to um, transmit to. That's the one you transmit to, and they receive it, and then they output on the other one. Uh, Most, in fact, I think all modern radios have a facility to put in your input and output frequencies and save it into memory. The other thing you need to save into memory is the access codes, the access tone codes. Um, there's a number of different types of them. I think the most common is what's called the CTCSS, the Controlled Tone Coded Squelch System. And let's see, I think we talked about that on this slide somewhere.
Yeah, we're talking about PL and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, PL.
There are some little exceptions. I know that in the Kalamazoo Grand Rapids area, there's one repeater on 147.000 that actually works for both communities. If you have a lower shift, 600 kilohertz under the 147.000, that's they have receivers that will respond in the Kalamazoo area. And if you're in the Grand Rapids area, you would use an upwards offset, so that would be 147.600, and the receivers and stuff would respond to that. So just makes it a little more convenient for people in the area to use that one repeater.
Okay, you need to know this, that the difference between the input frequency and the output frequency, the transmit frequency and the receive frequency, the difference in those frequencies is referred to as the offset, also sometimes called the shift. There is one question in the question pool that I'm pretty sure it uses the term offset. All right, so when they start talking about the repeaters offset, that's what they're looking for. For the 2-meter band, it's usually either plus or minus 600 kilohertz. For the 70 centimeter band, it's plus or minus 5 megahertz. Those are little data facts that you should memorize because there are questions in the question pool that ask that. Okay. Now, they're talking about remote receivers. Yeah, a repeater can have a central site where the main repeater is, but then it can have smaller limited boxes or transceivers located far away that can pick up signals and send them to the remote site or to the main site. And then the signals are then broadcast out from the main site. There is also a thing called linked repeaters. Now, some different parts of the country make better use of linking repeaters than we do here. I think part of the issue is some of the other radio clubs in Michigan don't want to be swamped by Southeast Michigan hams, so our repeaters aren't necessarily linked with them. Jerry, I remember you telling me that out in Colorado they have a fairly sophisticated linking system.
Actually, it's the entire Front Range of the Rocky Mountains from Canada all the way down to Texas. California also has a big system of that. If you get on the right repeater, you can talk to anyone all the way up and down the line.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Well, and here in Michigan, we do have a lot linked up. All of the northern part of lower Michigan, like from I-94 all the way up from, Detroit, included, all the left to right, and from 94 and all the way up, the MI5 system has that linking in place right now. And we use a lot of it with DMR.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll be talking about DMR in a moment. Okay, the last concept that we need to talk about in repeaters is this access tone. And the purpose of the access tone is to filter out miscellaneous calls or miscellaneous transmissions. The repeater will respond only if it gets a particular subaudible tone transmitted along with your broadcast. Okay. The common ones are these access tones are referred to as, one is continuous tone coded squelch system, CTCSS. Another, PL for private line. Yeah, that's a Motorola trade name. But they're all subaudible tones that get sent by your transceiver. You have to set it up. You have to set it up. You're going to go through your menus on your transceiver and set up the correct tone code. But they will get you into specific repeaters. They will get you into specific repeaters and keep you from getting into repeaters that you're not interested in. Okay. All right.
Oh yeah. Bob, I think there's a Canadian repeater that shares our frequencies, 146.64. And if you get the right conditions, someone in Canada could trigger our repeater. But since our repeater has that tone protection, they won't. The guy will just keep to his repeater.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you want to use a repeater, but you can't hear the repeater signal, or the repeater can't hear you, the first thing is make sure you're on the right frequencies. Also, but you've got to make sure that your offset is correct. You may hear the repeater just fine, but remember, you're going to transmit to that repeater on a different frequency. And if you don't have your radio set up with the correct offset, you're never going to hear them. And then secondly, not only do you need the right offset, uh, if the repeater requires a special access tone, you have to have that set in to your transmitter also. All right. And then, there's also the radio's digital coach squelch settings, which I think are somewhat, like the CTCSS. Okay, digital repeater systems. Oh, digital. Okay, we're going to talk about two interesting things. Well, there is a number of different linking things, but the two that may show up on the exam are IRLP and Echolink. Now, these are two computer assisted uh, transceiver kind of systems, right? They allow radio communications, but with the assistance of your laptop. Um, WiresX, D-Star, and digital mobile radio uh, are similar. All right. Both IRLP and Echolink use Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP. Remember that because that could be a question on the exam also. The thing about Echolink, now IRLP, yes, it's links a bunch of repeaters, but you do it through your radio. For Echolink is kind of cool in a way. Well, I think it is. Some people don't like it, but Echolink does use, the voice over internet protocol to connect you with a repeater, which you can use with your radio, or you can use without a radio. You can actually load it into. You can download Echolink. Of course, you load it into your laptop or your computer, or for that matter, into your smartphone, and you can communicate without the use of a radio. Just by using your computer system.
Bob, I have a page that I can share.
The which?
I have an Echolink page I can share.
Okay, here.
Okay. And this shows different areas of the world that you can find the Echolink links. And here's no right around our neck of the woods with the 8 call sign, Troy, Ohio, Troy, Michigan, and so on and so forth. So let's see if WH HP is in here.
Oh, yeah, you passed it, I think.
WHP.
There it is.
Right here, Oak Park, Michigan. That's us.
Yeah, that's our repeater.
All right. If you can click on that, you can access the repeater. If you go to England and click on London, you can access their repeater. This is the reason uh, when I send the information, make sure you get an original copy of your license because the people at Echolink are going to want that as proof that you're a ham, and that will gain you access to this whole system. I'm a little prejudiced against stuff like this because it depends on the internet being on, and our major mission to me is that when everything else fails, including the internet, we still have something viable. This depends on the internet. So anyway, that's my own personal little deal. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with Jerry on that too. But what it's really great for is, you know, your net control, and you're running the net tonight because you volunteered to do it, and something happens and you find out you need to be someplace else. You can't be with your rig. So you pull out your laptop, you go on Echolink, you run the net for 30 minutes and you're done.
Mhm.
You know, or even checking into the net. If you really, really want to check into a net and you're on vacation, you know,
Yeah.
you really got something to report to the folks that are going to be on the net, and you're on. So it's good for that kind of stuff. But I kind of agree with Jerry a little bit that, you know, when the internet goes down, it's gone.
But every Sunday, Bob was when you're presiding over the Hazel Park Net, we would get a couple of guys, one from
Oh,
Australia, and we had that missionary who was checked in from Thailand every week. It seemed like.
yeah, and we get the guy from Seattle every week,
Yeah,
or is it
so
Oregon? It's Oregon.
Oregon, yeah, Roseburg, Oregon.
Yep,
Dale.
Dale. Yes.
so that's what you got.
Yep.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, when I first started in ham radio, I wasn't crazy about Echolink either because, since you can do it without your radio, it's not, my thought was, it's not really radio. But then again, I live in a condominium, and on some Sunday nights when the weather is just miserable out, of course, I couldn't put up a permanent antenna, so I would have to go out and put up my outdoor antenna on a tripod and face the elements. And sometimes I would say, "Oh, I'm not going to face the rain or the snow or the cold," and I just do the I just do the net through Echolink. Um, Now I've put a antenna in my attic, so that takes care of some of it. Okay, um, all right. Uh,
But that's
IRLP,
another that's just another case that I wanted that I'm, you know, it's one of my high horse things that I
yeah,
want to point out that this is your hobby.
yeah,
If it takes a license to do it, no one can tell you it's not amateur radio.
exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to do it, don't let any of us old farts tell you it's not amateur radio. If it takes the license, it is. Have fun with your hobby your way.
Okay, Bob, let me share one more page for you.
Okay.
And where'd it go? Geez, here it is. Okay, here's what you can do. You for guys, my daughter's threatening to pop me into some one bedroom apartment someplace, so I don't have my shack. $20 monthly or $99 yearly, 29 stations, towers all over the place. So you can rent a station. You can get access of for DX stations with big towers, high power radios, and all that. You can control it from your computer, and there are some people who do that. So if you have more money than sense, then there you go. Okay, back to you.
Okay. Okay. Hey, I've got Oh, I've talked about this before, that IRLP and Echolink both use this dual tone multi-frequency tones to connect up. Remember that nomenclature can show up on your exam. WiresX does not show up on the exam. It's nice, I think. It uses voice only standard developed by Yaesu. D-Star, I don't know whose product that is.
That's ICOM.
That's ICOM, okay. Combines digital voice, okay. DMR, digital mobile radio. This is kind of interesting. Uses a technique where what they're doing is they're broadcasting multiple signals at the same time, or they're handling multiple signals at the same, it seems to us at the same time, but to but to electronic equipment, what they're doing is they're swapping out very quickly different signals and handling different signals very, very quickly. They call it time multiplexing. And in order to get into that, you have to get these digital codes, which for whatever reason are referred to as color codes, to get to specific repeaters, which is that color code business. It's similar to the control tone coded squelch system or the private line or any of the other access tone things. But to get into that DMR, you need to program your repeater with those IDs and with the codes, and then you join specific groups. Now, Mike, you use DMR, right? I don't use DMR, but oh, I think Mike is taking a break. All right. Digital repeater system. All right. All right. They're talking here about hotspots and how hotspots are sometimes used to link digital transceivers to the internet and its software. And again, WiresX, I'm not going to spend time on WiresX or Fusion or that because they don't appear on your test. All right. But to get them, you need to join the talk group and know the specific group's identification codes. You're also going to get a code of your own. So, and then nets. Oh, we've been talking about nets, all through the night. We've specifically, though, been talking about just conversational nets or, club nets. But nets are also used to pass emergency messages. And that's particularly true in emergency situations or crisis situations. Your book, I believe, showed you a picture of what a specific message looks like. It's formatted. You need to, if you're in a net that's passing net messages, the biggest thing you have to remember is to pass the messages exactly as you get them. If you're in some kind of a civil defense or civil emergency situation. That kind of activity is referred to as traffic handling when you're just passing messages along. Okay. In that case, of course, there's still a net control station, and and with net control, a net control operator will normally be directing communications between the different stations in his or her net, but emergency stations or emergency traffic can break into any net at any time. Okay. And what do we got here? Exchanging messages. Oh, yeah, we've already talked about that. And what we're referring to, that thing is radiograms. And the thing is, the most important job for the net operator is to pass the message along exactly as you get it. All right, the message has a nice preamble, so it's formatted so that sending and receiving is standard. Uh, there is a check number in there. The check number is the number of words or word equivalents in the radiogram. I have that highlighted because again, that can be one, that is a question in the question pool. They don't ask about precedence, they don't ask about number or station of origin, um, but they do ask what the term check in the radiogram refers to. And the check, it's a number, and it just refers to the number of words in the body of the message. Good thing to know. Okay, now, ARES and RACES. These are two emergency response organizations. ARES is sponsored by the Amateur Radio Relay League. RACES is part of FEMA, if I remember correctly. So they're, Jerry, are you shaking your head? No?
No, I'm shaking my head. Yes, they're in cahoots with each other.
Okay.
But neither of
All
them
right.
are really doing very much right now.
Okay. Well, anyhow, for ARES, well, for both of them, essentially what you're doing is um, you're registering your qualifications, which includes your license level and your equipment, and you're offering it for public service in times of emergency. Uh, Now, in times of emergency, and Mike's got to probably hit this more when he talks about regs, and that is in times of threats to life and property. In times of threats to life and property, no matter what your license is, you can use any frequency, any mode, any method to respond to an emergency or to report an emergency if there are threats to life and property. That's part of the rules. That's part of the FCC part 97. It's part of the rules that in threats to life and property, you can use any mode, any frequency, any method to respond to that.
Well, there are some limits, and I think in the last year there was a fairly notorious action by the FCC. Some guy who has a ham license decided to help some aircraft that were fighting a fire. So he got on their frequency and started talking to them, chatting with them. And the FCC took a very dim view, something like a $29,000 dim view of his doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know,
So
you have
yeah,
these nice rules, but there's always some moron that can screw things up.
Yep.
So, okay, satellite operations. This is something that interests some people, but not necessarily. We've talked about this before. The International Space Station, which orbits at around 225 miles, I think it is, or 250 miles up. Most of the astronauts are licensed hams, and you can actually call and talk to them. Now, that's usually a structured kind of thing where there are different periods of times where they'll take calls. Usually you have to apply for it. Um, Mike has worked with our club in doing an International Space Station contact for one of the high schools in the area. And that's a thing where, you had to apply for um, you had to apply for the session months in advance. And then, but you give the kids a chance to, talk to astronauts while they're actually in orbit.
It
Now,
was very cool. Still one of the coolest things I've ever done.
uh, now again, and I talked about this earlier, is that it's kind of funny, but your technician license allows you to do this because remember, um, your transmissions on the 2 meter band and the 70 centimeter band, they go through the atmosphere. They do not bounce off the atmosphere. They go right out into space. So um, they can actually contact satellites. Aside from the International Space Station, there are lots of other satellites up there. Amateurs have built satellites since the early 60s. There are over 4 dozen of them up there right now. And so if you hear the word Oscar, that stands for Orbiting Satellite Carrying Amateur Radio. Some of them are pretty small. They're not real big things, but they're kind of fun, and some people like to contact them. Okay, we talked already before about the uplink and the downlink, and it's going to be think of it almost like a repeater. You're transmitting on one frequency and listening on a second one. In this case, you're going to be either transmitting in the VHF band and listening in the UHF band, or vice versa. Okay. Now, there's all kinds of cool words that apply to satellites. They're in your book. Low Earth orbit, that's a cool one. But the definition of space station, there is a question in the question pool that asks about this. And so that's space station is defined by the Federal Communications as any station that's located more than, well, 50 kilometers, which is about 30 miles over the Earth's surface. Okay, so you get more than 30 miles, and yeah, it's a satellite, it's a space station. Okay, the other thing they ask about is spin fading. You know, those satellites, they have antennas on them, that's how they're broadcasting, but the satellites are in orbit, but they're also spinning. And so the spinning uh, means that sometimes the antenna will be pointing towards you and sometimes it will not. Sometimes it'll be in a good position and other times, So that can cause a lot of signal fading and some distortion. Okay, and tracking a satellite, yes, there are tracking programs. You can download them. You can find them. Just get on your laptop and ask Dr. Google, and you can find a tracking program. Um, Tracking programs, they need things called the Keplerian elements uh, to find actual satellites, and the software the tracking program will provide those Keplerian elements for you. The software also gives you a map showing you the the path of the satellites as they go over.
Now, one nice thing about the map is that it will have a kind of circle around the satellite, which shows you the kind of range. So when it passes over you, you know that if you're within a certain distance from where it is, you can talk to them. When we were doing the ISS contacts with the schools, uh, I think we had as much as an 11-minute window where we could hear them coming, talk to them, and then hear them leaving, and then nothing.
Yeah, yeah, they cross over us in 11 minutes. Well, they're going something like 28,000 miles an hour, so they're yeah, they're booking. Okay. And now we talked about the operational modes, how the satellites usually only have one mode, meaning either they receive on UHF or they transmit on UHF, and the other part is VHF. Okay, so if the uplink is coded U/V, that means that it's on the UHF band. The uplink is the UHF band, 70 centimeters, and the downlink is in the VHF or 2-meter band. Okay. Now, one thing about communicating with satellites is, again, they have limited power. So, and they're going to respond to you. They're going to try and respond to you. And this is automatic. They're going to try and respond with the same power that you put to them. So you really want to communicate with them with the minimum amount of power that you can. This will do a couple of things. It saves their batteries, first off, and it also keeps you from bleeding over into other people's transmissions. Okay. Oh, Keplerian elements. You know, we talked about the Keplerian elements. Here's the Keplerian elements if you wanted to know. You will not be tested on this, but epoch time, that's simply the time that the last measurements were taken. And then the orbital inclination, the ascending nodes, that gives you angles to look at. The eccentricity tells you about the type of orbit it is. Argument of perigee, that's what the closest point. And then average motion and average anomaly. Okay, that's it. That's the end of chapter 6. Hey, that was fun, wasn't it? All right.
Good.
Oh, boy, I don't usually talk that much at one stretch. I think it's Miller time. So, all right. Hey, are there any questions on this? Because I think, like I said, these last 4 chapters, they're easier than the ones we've had before. So, so enjoy that, but learn this stuff, because it's like, again, that question pops up, what's the national simplex calling frequency on 2 meters? You just got to know 146.52, right? There's not much way to reason that. Unless, let's see if I can find that. Practice questions. Oh, there's the question about simplex. What describes the amateur station? These are some of the actual questions that can show up in your exam. What's the term that describes transmitting and receiving on the same frequency? Simplex, right? Duplex, that's what you use on the repeater. Multiplex, I think that's a theater where you can go see different movies. And diplex, I think maybe that's a wrapper. I don't know.
Diplexer, I think,
or maybe that's Diplo. I don't know.
You can use the same antenna for 2 different frequencies or 2 different signals.
Repeaters input frequency. Oh, okay. Here's your Q questions, right? What signal indicates you're receiving interference from other stations? QRM. Remember, man-made signals. QRN. That's the natural. All right, and that one you need to know. And then the other one, the other Q signal is QSY, meaning you're changing to another frequency. And there's contesting, that's okay. I wanted to oh, there's the question about NTSC. It's an analog fast scan color TV. All right, radio direction finding. All right. Oh, what's the common repeater frequency offset in the 2-meter band? Okay, the 2-meter band plus or minus 600. And in the 70-centimeter band plus or minus 5 megahertz. Okay, and the repeater offset here, I told you they had a question about that, and that's the difference between transmit and receive. The linked repeater network, repeaters, a network of repeaters which signals received by one repeater are transmitted to another. Oh, okay. The term that describes the use of subaudible tones transmitted along with normal voice audio. All right, now, so remember this, CTCSFs, all right? Control Tone Coded Squelch System. And, oh, what type of signaling uses pairs of audio tones? Okay, now in this, remember, DTMF, that's dual tone. Dual tone, that's two tones. All right, so that's the pair of audio frequencies. That's what makes this right. GPRS is
Actually,
something
Bob,
completely different.
Bob, that's the dial system of a regular telephone.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's also the correct answer to this question.
Right.
All right, and I want you to get to Echo Lake. Oh. All right. When do FCC rules not apply to the operation of an amateur? They always apply. Remember that I told you that you can use any frequency, any mode in terms of emergency situations involving threats to life and property. That's part of the rules. So if you're doing that and operating outside your normal privileges for that type of emergency, that's part of the rules. You're still operating within the rules. Okay? And I thought oh, no, no, no. I'll be darned. Okay, well,
Hey, Bob, hold on for a sec. Can you go back to that 5 megahertz, the offset questions?
yes,
Okay, it's 500. Okay, they're both there. I was just wondering.
yeah,
Because the answer is either going to be 600 megahertz or 600 kilohertz or 5
kilohertz.
megahertz. And I was wondering if they gave you both answers, both of those in both of those answers, and they do. So you're just
Mhm.
going to have to know 600 kilohertz or 5 megahertz for which one. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, and then the question about the FM simplex, the national calling frequency for FM simplex. Again, you look at the answers here. Well, these two 400, they're absolutely wrong. You know that, so it's one of these two. You just have to memorize the 146.52 or memorize it doesn't end in 000. Okay. Anyhow, that's just what I wanted to show you. Um, please, if you haven't started yet, start taking the practice tests. They are the surest way to ensure that you will pass your exam. I know when I was studying for my extra license, I took well over 4 dozen practice exams in the couple of weeks leading up to the test. And although I'm not, terribly technically, I don't have a lot of technical knowledge. I did very well on the exam. I only missed for the extra exam, it's 50 questions, not 35, and I only missed
You
like 3.
only took 4 dozen tests? Holy cow, you're a smarter guy than I thought.
Oh, no,
I took about
really.
4 million.
Oh, okay. Hey, everyone. Next week is going to be chapter 7. Miguel will be doing it for you.
Woohoo.
Okay. Everyone, thank you for showing up and take those practice tests. Okay.
Okay. Stop
All right.
recording.
Good night.